You're tuned in to the only all-sports talk network in the Middle East, IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Check out the Israel Sports Radio store by clicking on the store tab on IsraelSportsRadio.com. Great items such as t-shirts, hats, books, and much, much more. Price does include shipping, and we do ship throughout the entire world. All major credit cards are accepted to make your shopping experience easy and convenient. So once again, click on the store tab on www.israelsportsradio.com.
Connecticut School of Broadcasting founder Dick Robinson.
You know, the media business has changed a lot since we opened our doors in 1964. Now media content is everywhere. On air, online, on the go. More than ever, companies are looking for people to help drive this new media.
At Connecticut School of Broadcasting, you'll get hands-on training on the latest software and equipment in a matter of months, not years. Connecticut School of Broadcasting has placed thousands of grads in broadcast media careers.
It's all about versatility. You see, at a radio station, if you also know how to shoot, edit, and post videos, you become a pretty hot commodity. That's the training you get at Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
Connecticut School of Broadcasting with locations up and down the East Coast from Massachusetts to Miami. Call 1-800-TV-RADIO or log on to GoCSB.com. Connecticut School of Broadcasting, the nation's oldest and largest group of broadcast media schools. Redefining training in radio, TV, and new media. Get trained. Get connected. 1-800-TV-RADIO.
Live from Studio C at the Cherry Hill campus for the Connecticut School of Broadcasting, it's Sports Talk with the...
Down goes Frazier! He scores! High fly ball into right field. She is gone!
Welcome to another edition of Sports on AllNoiseRadio.com, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. As always, you can chime in on the conversation, 856-330-4749, or you can send me a tweet at the Yossi G, that's THEYOSSIG, or you can send me a message on Facebook, facebook.com, and search for Sports Talk. A lot of you, I know, have been dealing with the cold weather the last week or so, but not just this polar vortex that has come our way. We seem to have been to be completely involved and surrounded by the never-ending meteorologist doom prediction, weather forecasts, all those sort of things, whether it was the Super Bowl, the snowstorm that hit the East Coast just hours after the Seahawks defeated, I think I would probably say demolished, destroyed, any adjective therein, the Broncos. And then once we finally figure that, hey, we might be in the clear, maybe give or take 24 hours from Groundhog Day, we got that last snowstorm of the winter, so to speak, the last real big brutal bash, like 8 to 10 inches here in the Philadelphia region. But we're not done yet. We get hit with a half an inch of ice in some places north and west of the greater Philadelphia, close to an inch. For one, I have to leave my house. I have to leave my place of residence, my only location that I know to be true and near and dear to my heart as a solid space of refuge. I had to leave my, as they call it in Jewish terms, my dalet amos, my 4 cubic meters, essentially my abode, because I didn't have heat. I didn't have electricity. We did have running water. But, of course, it was all cold water because there was no way to heat the water to make it hot. So I had to go with my wife, and we had to go check into a hotel. Now, it was kind of neat that this hotel, unlike a lot of others that I've been to in the past, it's kind of, hey, you can go to the gym at all hours of the day or night, go swimming till 11 p.m. But the nicest thing about it was that it had heat. And you know what? Come to think about it, one of the things that have been drawing a lot of heat lately has been the Hall of Fame selection process that went on this past weekend, actually, Saturday, Shabbos day, the day before the Super Bowl. The Hall of Fame announced its newest members, and just in case you were much more involved with the Super Bowl and really couldn't care about the Hall of Fame, the 2014 Hall of Fame class, outside, of course, the most named, or the most the person who we are familiar with the most, that being Michael Strahan, who got in, of course the former Giants defensive end, but the other members of the Hall were Derek Brooks, a linebacker with the Buccaneers who won the Super Bowl with them in 2002, Andre Reed, the Bills wide receiver, who I'll get to in just a moment, out of Kutztown University, 4th-round pick. He got in, played 15 years with the Bills, 16 overall. And then, of course, there also was Enos Williams, a DB for the Cardinals and the Rams. And, of course, probably the one person who everybody seems to have wanted for many years to get in was Ray Guy, the ridiculous punter. The punter with ridiculous stats, I should say, for the Raiders for 14 years. Never before has a punter been elected to the Hall of Fame, and only thanks to the senior committee did Guy get in. He was a Raiders legend. He played 14 years with the Silver and Black in Oakland. And look at the resume, all right? Now, think for a moment this guy is not a punter. Think for a moment he could be any offensive lineman, for Pete's sake, all right? He had 7 Pro Bowls, 8-time All-Pro, 3-time Super Bowl champion, and he was a member of the NFL's 75th anniversary team. I think it is pretty safe to say that 99 out of 100 players who have these stats would be already selected for the Hall of Fame. That it took Guy this long to get in is because he's a punter, and because there's never been a punter elected to the Hall of Fame before him. However, that said, any punter who would be the one to break that, never before has there been any sort of a stigma on the position, is Ray Guy. He had a huge leg kick, tremendous hang time on punts, and he practically wrote the book on the punter position. So I guess you could say that that his election probably is going to open up the door for more special teamers to find their way into Canton, but it certainly was nice to know that Ray Guy finally got his due. But one of the individuals who I find that is deserving of the Hall actually was left out. His name was not on the list. That being said, that guy is Marvin Harrison. For me, he is the prototypical type of wide receiver that you always want on your team. When you think of Marvin Harrison, you think of Hall of Fame stats. When you think of Marvin Harrison, you think of a winner. When you think of Marvin Harrison, you think of somebody who should be in the Hall of Fame on his first try. However, somebody who played more years than him and had less numbers, significant numbers, all around than him, made it into the Hall of Fame, that being Andre Reed. The question isn't so much about Andre Reed per se, is he deserving or not? The conundrum that I find is that if you're going to elect Andre Reed for the Hall of Fame, shouldn't somebody who has better numbers in less years be elected too? I mean, where do you draw the line? I mean, also, I know that there are some of the guys who are elected to the Hall of Fame. They're not elected in, their first or second year. Okay, fine, you want to call it maybe borderline type of a player, and you don't know if he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. Okay, fine, but where does a guy who's been around for, as a possibility for having his selection, and he's not been selected for many years, where does he suddenly become, all right, yeah, we can vote him in, when there are other players who are better and have had better numbers who are not elected yet or have not been elected at this current moment? Now, just for argument's sake, let's go down Marvin Harrison's numbers for what he did. All right, went to Syracuse. All right, fine, whatever. 6 foot, $175. He's selected in the first round by the Colts. That we all know, right? Played his whole career with the Colts, won a Super Bowl. No worries, right? He 8-time Pro Bowler, 3-time first-team All-Pro, won a Super Bowl with the Colts. He had 13 years in the league. 8 of those 13 years he played full seasons, and of the 5 that he didn't play full seasons, there was only twice did he miss more than 1 game in that season. So just to compare for a moment here, all right? He played in 190 games. He had over 1,100 receptions, 14,500 yards receiving, 128 touchdowns. Okay? Andre Reed, 4th-round selection by the Bills. He was also a 7-time Pro Bowler. He played for 16 years. And overall, 16 years, he only played in 7 full seasons. So that's less than half of his career did he play full seasons. Okay, so 234 games, 1,300, a little bit more than 13,000 yards, and only 87 touchdowns. And I use the term only loosely because it's only 87 touchdowns when compared to somebody else, this case being Marvin Harrison. One of the issues that I have with not just football Hall of Fame voting, but most Hall of Fame voters, if not all of the Hall of Fame voters, is there's no consistency when it comes to Hall of Fame voting. That is a problem. I think the one type of Hall of Fame voting, the NHL Hall of Fame voting, the Hockey Hall of Fame voting process, I think is probably the fairest possible that you could hope to actually have for a professional sports league. When you look at, the NFL, the Baseball Hall of Fame got a lot of flack a couple weeks ago when you consider that there's some of the people who are voting for the Hall of Fame in baseball probably haven't watched a baseball game in years, possibly even decades, but certainly years. You're talking a little over 520 individuals who are voting for the Baseball Hall of Fame, some of which haven't seen a game, since Catfish Hunter was playing. But that being said, the hockey, the way they do it, I think is probably the best, because even though you have a lot of people voting, but they vote every 2 years. And what I mean by that is every 2 years there are new people who come in and vote. I was speaking with Stan Fischler, NHL historian, a little bit ago, and he was telling me about the whole Hall of Fame voting process in the NHL, and this is what kind of really put my sentiment about how I feel about the election process really out there on the forefront. And what he said was, he was on the selection committee for 2 years, 1991 to 93, and if I recall correctly. And what he saw was that some of the voters had petty little, relatively insignificant grudges against some of the players, some of the coaches, those people who were being voted on as possible Hall of Fame candidates. And because of these petty grudges, the players who probably potentially should have gotten in or should have gotten a vote from this specific individual or individuals did not get that person's vote. And the vote went to somebody else who, whether that person may have been, a player who should be in the Hall of Fame or somebody who is less than deserving. Nonetheless, that being said, it went to somebody else due to a relatively insignificant grudge that a specific voter was holding against a player. However, that said, the NHL's thing is every 2 years, most of the voters get changed out for other voters. So if player A has a grudge against him by voter A is gone in 2 years, and player A could potentially get that voter A slot vote from someone else. However, when it comes to the NFL now, it doesn't seem like there is a consistency. You have somebody like Andre Reed, who has borderline Hall of Fame numbers, and for that reason was passed over for a number of years until finally this year getting in. And congratulations to him for getting in. Had a long career, played very well with teams that went to the Super Bowl for a number of years, and obviously never won one. But how do you put him into the Hall of Fame the same year that somebody who played a couple years less than him, who put up better numbers than him, who's eligible for the Hall of Fame, is not elected? Don't tell me that, Marvin Harrison had Peyton Manning and Edgerrin James and all them. Well, guess who Andre Reed had? He had Jim Kelly. There were other players on that team that made the team tick, that made the team go. It wasn't just all on Andre Reed, and look at what he did all by himself. It wasn't all by himself. And that is where my conundrum with the NFL's Hall of Fame voting process comes into play. 856-330-4749. Sports Talk with the Sports Rabbi. We'll be right back after this short commercial break. Don't go anywhere. When I come back, we'll break down a little bit about this Super Bowl that we saw, a little bit about what the NFL has in store for us going forward, and we'll take your calls and we'll take your tweets only on All Noise Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. We'll be right back.
Honey, again you're sitting here sulking?
I hate my job and I don't know what to do to change it.
Get off the couch and go check out the Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
The Connecticut School of Broadcasting? What's that? The Connecticut School of Broadcasting offers a career and lifestyle change through a broadcasting experience you won't ever forget. Log on to GoCSB.com to find out how a career in broadcasting is for you and not just the people you see on TV or hear on the radio. CSB focuses on many aspects of real-world broadcasting, and their knowledgeable instructors teach you through a hands-on approach so you're in the studio in no time. To find out how CSB can help you work in an industry you love, call 1-800-TV-RADIO or check us out online at GoCSB.com.
Why work 50 weeks a year for a 2-week vacation when you can enjoy your job every day?
Don't just sit there. Call 1-800-TV-RADIO or log on to GoCSB.com. Thanks, CSB.
Your computer is blowing up to the sounds of All Noise Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
Welcome back, sport, here on All Noise Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. As always, 856-330-4749, or you can send me a tweet at the Yossi G, or a Facebook message, facebook.com, and search for Sports Talk with the Sports Rabbi. During the commercial break, I was getting a couple of tweets, and one of them came from Mendel in Brooklyn. Mendel wants to know, he says the Seahawks won the Super Bowl, but who will win next year's big game? Well, that is, I mean, truthfully, I think it's a little early to really give a true and proper, so to speak, odds-on favorite for who would be the team to beat. But right now, what I would have to say is you have to look at everything that you see right now, in terms of teams. And my list for teams, I guess you could say, I've broken it down to 5 teams. One of them, for my favorites to go to the Super Bowl. One of the teams, of course, is the Philadelphia Eagles. Probably, I would put them at number 6 because when you look at what Chip Kelly has done with the Eagles, his first NFL season as an NFL coach of any sort was a resounding success. You had Nick Foles, the quarterback. Once he was able to get comfortable in the offense, the team won their last 7 of 8 games in to close out the regular season and win the NFC East division. Connor Barwin, the linebacker for the Eagles, also said, right after the season that he thinks there's going to be a lot of growth between years 1 and years 2 when it comes to the Eagles defense, which was a big, weak link in the team, which progressively got stronger as the season went on. The Eagles also have to make decisions at wide receiver, because you have Jeremy Maclin, who some are rumoring as a possible landing spot for him would be the New York Jets, and Riley Cooper are both free agents. Cooper and Nick Foles both developed a really good relationship in terms of on the field, playing ball. Cooper became one of Foles' go-to guys, kind of almost like a safety blanket for him. The question would be, where would Cooper, more so for Cooper than for Foles, where would Cooper be without Nick Foles? That's would be a really good reason for why I would look to see Cooper coming back. Maclin coming off an ACL injury, out for the entire season. Big question mark as to how he would return playing for the Eagles. I actually see him going. Cooper staying. The NFC East is going to be a competitive division, but the Philadelphia Eagles, who are going to continue to grow, continue to ascend, with Chip Kelly as the guy in their house. So look for them as probably my dark horse to make the Super Bowl, to make a run there. The Green Bay Packers, when you look at them, now, you also have to remember that at the end of the day, even though they barely snuck into the playoffs and their season essentially went down, their playoff seeding, the season nearly went to the can because it rode on Aaron Rodgers' broken collarbone, and that nearly derailed the Packers' entire season. But with that said, the Packers, they had a couple of things that happened towards their late push for the NFC North title. They had Eddie Lacy, their running back. The running game, it would allow for a more balanced offensive attack going forward because it'll give them an edge of a way that they could put away their opponents. Aaron Rodgers is not always going to be asked to throw for 40 times every single game because they could ride Eddie Lacy as their workhorse. Rodgers has many weapons. If you look at the Broncos and what Peyton Manning has at his disposal, I would argue and say Aaron Rodgers, when the Packers are healthy, certainly rival Peyton Manning and the Broncos as to what type or the number of weapons that he has at his disposal. And the real question mark for the Packers, and it's been their really the biggest knock on the team has been their defense over the last few years. Ted Thompson, their GM, he's going to have to make decisions this offseason, like with defensive tackle B.J. Raji and cornerback Sam Shields are some of the notable guys who are going to hit free agency. But I think that they have a pretty good shot. And you have Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback, you usually have a pretty good shot of making the Super Bowl. The Indianapolis Colts are another guy. Andrew Luck has made so many strides from his rookie year 2 years ago. He's led the Colts back-to-back postseason berths in his first 2 seasons, and he's not satisfied. You look at the type of player that he is, how much effort he puts in preparation to before games. In off-season and another year in Pep Hamilton's offense and their offensive coordinators, schemes certainly is going to also benefit Trent Richardson, their midseason acquisition from the Cleveland Browns, who many look at as a complete and utter bust. However, I look at the third-year running back making major progress next year, and so much so where the team will be able to formulate a game plan for him properly, one that both they feel comfortable he could run in, and he feels comfortable he can run in as well. Look at Reggie Wayne's going to be back in the lineup. That will also benefit the offense. GM Ryan Grigson is building a roster from the top to the bottom of this Colts franchise to compete with the best in the league. The first thing, though, first, he has to stabilize his defense before anything really can go, before they can really progress. The Colts have to add a playmaker along the defensive line to help defending against the run. Having Mathis there is not enough. You need more than just Mathis on your linebacker defensive front, and it's important that they also know that. And it seems like they will be knowing that, and I'm sure they're going to go ahead and either get one in free agency or pick up an impact player on the defensive line through the draft. With that said, this is the NFL. And since the 6th round pick out of Michigan came into the NFL at pick number 199 overall, the National Football League has really been owned by the New England Patriots. They have been the most consistent, no matter how topsy-turvy the team is, coming through, you can always count on them. They are as good as any team, as a solid lock in Vegas to make the playoffs. The New England Patriots were able, they got torched by the Broncos to be knocked out of the Final Four, to be knocked out of the AFC title game. But even though you did have a lot of injuries, and you did have a lot of, on both sides of the offense and the defense, and you had a lot of, every week so it seemed that there was new players on the roster, names you never heard of, but everybody making an impact. You have young defensive talent out on the Patriots' defensive side, linebackers Jamie Collins, defensive end Chandler Jones, cornerback Logan Ryan. They're all going to be coming into this offseason, going into next season with that playing experience, being able to shore up this unit. Belichick does a fantastic job, as we all know, assembling a team and maximizing every roster spot that he has. Tom Brady doesn't have that many offensive weapons to work with. No problem. We'll bring in guys who nobody's ever heard of before, and we'll make it work. The guy on my middle, the quarterback, so to speak, for my defense goes out. All right, we'll figure out a way to get the plays out there on the field that everybody on the defense knows where they should be, what they should be doing. It's likely that Belichick is going to use the draft and again find bargains in free agency as well that will ultimately help the Patriots down the stretch. Rob Gronkowski's rehab from his ACL injury is going to be the number one question mark going into whether this team will have success or how much success the Patriots will have going forward, and if he can, of course, return to 100% and give the Patriots that much-needed boost on offense that they need. And going forward, of course, the top two teams in my mind are of course the Niners and the Seahawks to repeat. Now, for me, I look at the San Francisco 49ers. They're going to be making their home debut at Levi Stadium, the new stadium, in the fall after playing at Candlestick Park for the last 40-plus years. It's a new era. Jim Harbaugh, he's taking on, he took on the head coaching duties a couple years ago, and the 49ers have played in the NFC Championship game in each of those 3 seasons he's been the head coach. Colin Kaepernick is going to need to improve his passing game inside the pocket, but he's going to be, of course, assisted by Michael Crabtree. a torn Achilles sideline Crabtree until week 13 this past year, but next season you hope that he'll be healthy and ready to go and be able to give you a full season to complement Frank Gore, the running back, and of course your tight end, Vernon Davis. So when you look at all of the different aspects that the team has, the window is closing slowly. Frank Gore, he's 30 years old. He's entering the final year of his contract. So you can also expect Kendall Hunter and Marcus Lattimore to have big roles next year. And even though there is no timeline right now for Navarro Bowman's return after that gruesome, grisly, ugly injury that he suffered towards the end of the NFC title game, it wouldn't be a long shot to assume, as we've seen so many other players come back so quickly, that Bowman should be ready to play for the 49ers in 7 months, week 1. Of course, the team that everybody knows and loves, the Seattle Seahawks, it seems, with LOB, the Legion of Boom. They're the second youngest team ever to win a Super Bowl, and they are keeping their core intact this offseason because many of the players that played this season are still in the middle of their rookie deal. So they are well under the salary cap, and they'll be fine in that department. Michael Bennett, their defensive end, offensive tackle Brent Giacomini, and wide receiver Golden Tate are going to be testing free agency, and this team, however, is built to win championships. It has a young core. Couple guys can go. Couple more guys can come. GM John Schneider has done an amazing job of bringing in both known pieces and unknown players to help out Coach Pete Carroll. And he himself, Carroll, has a knack of shaping a team that fuels itself and prides itself on camaraderie. That's what we've seen all along. Russell Wilson might not be the most dynamic quarterback in the league, but he moves the chains, and he's clutch when clutch is needed. You have a solid running game led by Marshawn Lynch, who it's questionable what's going to happen. He says he said a couple weeks ago if he wins the Super Bowl, he's going to retire. Doubtful that he'll actually follow through on that. He's the foundation of this team, and the stifling defense that they have, the defense that was able to smother the the Broncos, able to smother Peyton Manning and not allow for them to have more than just 8 points in the Super Bowl of all games. The Super Bowl will allow the team to compete with any other squad that comes forth. Earl Thomas, he's a free safety. He's going to cash in on his All-Pro season and look for the Seattle Seahawks as the odds-on favorite to repeat. I'm getting a tweet in here. Well, this coming in from Paul in Center City. So, well, what about the Broncos? What about Manning? They can do it. I don't know about that, Paul. I really don't, because Peyton Manning, even though he broke records and he did not get the Vince Lombardi Trophy, and he still has that fire in his belly to play. If the doctors, this is what it all boils down to. If the doctors in March, when he goes for his test next month on his neck, if the doctors say, listen, Peyton, you got a lot of damage or potential for a lot more damage if you go play another season, we suggest you don't, then guess what? He's retiring. And right now, when you look at this team, it needs somebody like Peyton Manning to call the shots in order for it to be able to go back to a Super Bowl, because the team does not have a very good defense right now. The defense needs to get better. It almost seemed like Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie and Champ Bailey, both corners for the team, just went to sleep in the Super Bowl, just didn't even show up. You need guys like those to play better. You need guys like those to play like the Richard Shermans and the Cam Chancellors of Seattle in order for that team to shore itself up on all sides. And that was the knock on the Broncos all year, because they could score 35 points. The question was, would they also give up 40? If they didn't give up that many, obviously the game is all about who scores more, but if you don't give up 40 points and you're able to score more than the other team, you're going to win. That is the obvious thing, but it's a lot more difficult to do when the time comes, and that was proven this year. Yeah, you have Peyton Manning, who can run this offense with all these weapons, but bring in somebody else, you may not be able to be that beneficial, even though you may have all these weapons. When I come back, I will discuss just a little bit about this whole Richie Incognito thing and what we should be expecting, because a little later on tonight, possibly tomorrow, we will hear what the final verdict is on Richie Incognito. And then after that, we'll get into some baseball stuff. Rabbi here on All Noise Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. But first, here is Yossi Goldstein with your Sports Update. Good evening, I'm Yossi Goldstein with your All Noise Radio Sports Update. Coming off its 108-102 win against the 76ers, the Nets are underway at home against the Spurs, leading San Antonio 17-14 midway through the first quarter. On the ice, the Islanders and Flames are scoreless on Long Island, and the Rangers are up on Edmonton 1-0 at Madison Square Garden on a goal from Ryan Callahan. The Flyers, hosting the Colorado Avalanche, are down one midway through the first at the Wells Fargo Center. Elsewhere, the Jets have filled their last remaining vacancy for its coaching staff, hiring Thomas McGaughey to be the special teams coach. The NFL announced it's partnering with CBS to show the first 8 Thursday night games of the upcoming season on CBS. Those games, as well as the additional Thursday night games, will all be shown on the NFL Network. This sports update has been brought to you by Chabad Packer, where all your travel needs are answered. Find them at chabadpacker.com. For All Noise Radio, I'm Yossi Goldstein with your half past the hour sports update.
All Noise Radio. The noise. The noise you can't ignore.
All Noise Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. As always, 856-330-4749, or you can send me a tweet on Twitter at TheYossig, that's TheYossig, or you can send me a message on Facebook, facebook.com, and search for Sports Talk with the Sports Rabbi. Richie Incognito has really gotten our attention over the last couple of, figure about a month and a half ago, it was pretty much all anybody was talking about. And like I said then, do not judge somebody before you know the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Now, we know that the entire all the details, the entire report is going to be released later on today. The entire report that Ted Wells has been investigating into Jonathan Martin, the Richie Incognito bullying situation, either a little later on this evening or at some point tomorrow. But there have been a transcript over 1,000 text messages between the two over the course of a year that seem to show a chain, a connection, a consistency. That being lewd, back and forth friendship. A lot of crude language, plenty of discussions about partying, drinking, women, possible drug use. And the question that really comes up after all of this is not so much, after reading the text messages, I'll admit I did not read all 1,000 text messages, but I got the gist, and there were some key ones in there, especially around the time when Martin left the team. The question that is begged to be asked is, who put the blame on Incognito first? And the second question is whether or not Jonathan Martin or Richie Incognito lied. Now, after reading after reading many of the text messages and being disturbed by, quite frankly, by a lot of them, I think that the first order of business is really, if you're going to start pointing fingers where we stand right now, I would say it has to be at Martin's agent. Because what the text messaging that have been going back and forth, if you're going to believe both Martin and Incognito at their word, it must be that it's the agent, Martin's agent, who's the guy who really started pointing fingers at Richie Incognito, because they seem to have a friendly enough relationship between the two that, yeah, there's probably words and verbiage that was used that they probably should never have used ever in any sort of a situation, any sort of environment. But all that being water under the bridge at this point, when you look at the last, the telling text messages, that being on November 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, where Incognito is writing to Martin saying on the 1st, quote, "I heard it's all coming from your agent." Then on November 2nd saying, "I need you, buddy. I'm getting killed in the media." And finally on the 3rd, which is the day that the Miami Dolphins suspended Incognito, he writes to Martin, "Bro, can we talk? The Dolphins are talking about releasing me." So when you go through things along that nature, right? When you go through that and you hear and you read what Martin responded, and he also writes to him at one point. Martin writes to Incognito saying, "I got nothing to do with it, man. I haven't said anything to anyone." That thereby goes to show to me that he may not be the one to blame for all this, Martin, or for that matter, Incognito is his own situation, but Jonathan Martin in this case. It may have all begun from Jonathan Martin's agent saying, we gotta get you off this team. There's a bad culture there. Let's just try to get your contract, to remove you from the contractual obligations. The Dolphins just have to pay you because it's an environment that they created. The other question of whether or not anybody was lying here, right now, the Dolphins, they suspended Incognito on the 3rd of November, and he remained suspended for the final 8 games of last season. But with that said, many players on the Dolphins not only understand that there was that culture, things that were said probably shouldn't have been said, and actions, etc., but they go so far as to actually back Richie Incognito in this case more so than Jonathan Martin. So if you're talking about people who were lying, people who were not saying things that they should have, people who were doing things more so than the actual words that were being said, but perhaps in a more an unethical manner, because at this point, it's not just your paycheck that is being, withheld, that being the one of Jonathan Martin, but you're affecting other players' paychecks. You're affecting whether or not your team has the ability to make to win games, to make the postseason. So this really spiraled out of control really, really quickly. And whether or not somebody lied, it's too early to say, because we don't know what the full report is going to say and what it says therein. But if we were to venture to from what was released, from the text messages, and from what we know already in this case, I would have to say that it's less so much Richie Incognito, it's more Jonathan Martin as an issue in this specific regard. Talking about issues that have to be figured out, the Jets have a big issue to figure out, and that is their quarterback situation, Geno Smith. Not since Joe Namath have the Jets been to the Super Bowl, and that was 1969. That's over 40 years. They came close with Vinny Testaverde. They came close with Favre until he decided to not disclose that he had a torn bicep. And they also, of course, came close twice with Mark Sanchez, a superior defense and running game notwithstanding. But they brought in Geno Smith after they got, just fed up with a turnover-prone quarterback that they had in Sanchez. And there was a lot of ups and downs in this season. what I expect to see going forward from Geno Smith is the learning, is the ability that he showed in the last 4 games of the season. He threw for over 3,000 yards. He had 12 touchdowns. He made plays with his legs. He's got a really good, big arm. He's an athletic quarterback, and he can make big plays down the field. When you combine everything together, he also led 4 game-winning drives. So when you combine all the positives together, it leads for hope going forward. It leads for a brighter future. However, that being said, he also was responsible for 28 total turnovers, 21 interceptions, and 7 fumbles. Don't forget that in a game when you turn the ball over, that's one thing. When you turn the ball over and it goes for a pick 6, that completely deflates your team at that point. Forget momentum. It's gone. The tide has turned. And he was also very inconsistent, only about 55% completion percentage of his passes. However, he made strides. He started reading defenses better towards the end of the season. And I feel that in 2014 going forward, he's going to have an entire offseason with Marty Mornhinweg and the quarterback's coach, David Lee. He'll be able to familiarize himself more with the playbook, work on his timing, work on his footwork, and I believe that he will have a chance to capitalize and show the organization that he is the guy they've been coveting. He's the guy they've been looking for since Joe Namath left the Jets organization a few seasons after they won Super Bowl III. But the last question in the NFL right now is, of course, in Dallas, and that, of course, being with regards to Johnny Manziel, whether or not he's going to get drafted by them. It makes a lot of sense for them because you look at what the Seahawks have, you look at what the Cowboys have. They can, Jerry Jones can groom Johnny Manziel until Tony Romo and the Cows come home. But the one issue, no matter what happens, no matter if Jerry Jones brings in the receivers, brings in the defensive guys, brings in players to help make Johnny better, to help put pieces around him, at the end of the day, the Dallas Cowboys aren't going anywhere until Jerry Jones goes somewhere. And that somewhere is away from the sidelines, away from being all the time involved, and away from micromanaging his entire franchise. But that's just a little bit of my Dallas shout-out as to why the Cowboys will not be good for the foreseeable future until Jerry realizes that he is the issue. Sports Talk with the Sports Rabbi will be right back after this short commercial break. When I come back, we'll break down some baseball stories before we wrap this baby up. All Noise Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. Don't go anywhere.
It's been 48 years. Connecticut School of Broadcasting has helped place thousands of people, just like you, in exciting careers in radio, television, and the new media. At Connecticut School of Broadcasting, our hands-on approach is different. It's designed to have you spend less time in the classroom and more time in the studios. From the first day, you'll work with state-of-the-art equipment. Learn by doing from our team of industry professionals who come from their studios to ours. The best part about it, you'll learn it all in a matter of months, not years. Connecticut School of Broadcasting has a network of 12 campuses from Massachusetts to Miami. Remember, it's never too late to love what you do. So do what I did. Call 1-800-TV-RADIO. Step into the fast-paced world of the broadcast media. Day and evening classes begin soon. Connecticut School of Broadcasting. Get trained and get connected now. Call 1-800-TV-RADIO or log on to GoCSB.com.
Your computer is blowing up to the sounds of All Noise Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
Welcome back, Sports Talk with the Sports Rabbi here on All Noise Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. As always, 856-330-4749 on the phones or on Twitter at the Yossi G, that's THEYOSSIG, or on Facebook, facebook.com, and search for a story that will probably help you get out of your winter blues. Is, of course, the Philadelphia Phillies have got their tractor trailer all set and ready to go down to Clearwater, baby. Pitchers and catchers start for the Phillies on February 12th. It's a week from Wednesday. Actually, that is this coming Wednesday. Now they look at the calendar. And they have their tractor trailer. It's heading down south, heading out to Clearwater, Florida, with all their chewing gum, their bats, their baseballs, their Depends diapers, their Bengay. I'm just cracking a little joke over here. The Phillies are so old, without getting too excited and possibly, breaking a hip or something. The Phillies are the third oldest team in the Bigs, and I know that a lot of people are not thrilled with that, and it's something that we've spoken about here, spoke about it last week, spoke about it a couple weeks ago as well, with the moves that they've made. However, it's still before the baseball season begins, and you know that on opening day, everybody's got the same record, 0-0. Everybody starts from the same spot. There's nobody getting a head start. Nobody's starting from behind, even though it does feel like that in Philadelphia in terms of who they've brought in and who they've retained from the past for this, for the team. But certainly bringing, getting ready, it's palpable, it's in the air, and hopefully people get excited that the spring training is just around the corner. Pitchers and catchers are right next door, so to speak. And if you want to get out of this frigid, cold weather, ice, snow, and sleet and hail and all that other good stuff, get on a plane, go down to Clearwater, and get a chance to enjoy some fun in the sun and, of course, watch your favorite team, the Philadelphia Phillies, play host to other awesome teams and probably kick their butt on the field. That being said, also talking about the offseason, the MLB offseason, the free agent signing has really been cold. It's really been a chill in the air when it comes to free agent signing, no pun intended. And there's some questions being raised from the players' union about the lack of really big qualifying offers, especially for really good pitchers. Irvin Santana, he's one of those guys who you thought was going to be swooped up right away, right in the beginning, but he, Ubaldo Jimenez, and Bronson Arroyo, they've all remained unemployed, as do a lot of second-tier starters and pitchers and catchers next week, and they still haven't got a team to pony up for them. The thing, though, is, when you look at how the CBA is structured, first of all, it's going to be extremely difficult for the players and for the Players Association to, they can claim collusion all they want, but to actually prove that the teams are actually going through with the process of collusion and not offering the free agent open market that you would normally think on your average year to these pitchers, so as to bring the entire free agent market lower, bring the prices a little lower. Ubaldo and Jimenez probably should have taken their qualifying offer from their teams respectively, each offering a just over $14 million one-year deals. The thing, though, is like this. Both pitchers have their flaws, and Arroyo, his only flaw really is his age. He's effective, he's been durable, but he's turning 37 at the end of the month. So when you look at the free agency as a whole right now, there's thus far been a total expenditure by clubs on free agency is a record, $1.77 billion. Clayton Kershaw, $250 million contract extension. Masahiro Tanaka for a $155 million deal. I mean, these are guys who will bring it, and teams that really need it are going to pay for it. But in terms of Arroyo, in terms of Jimenez, in terms of Irvin Santana, teams are not willing right now to pay the price that those guys are asking. I don't think that's collusion. I think that's common sense. You don't overpay. It's finally happening. I think it's finally happening that teams are getting their collective minds together and saying, we don't have to pay all this money for a player who's not worth it. Yeah, we need a pitcher, but do we need a pitcher that badly? Can't we maybe look to our farm system, try to bring somebody up from within our own organization. Why do we have to go out and sign somebody off the free agent market who we feel is not worthwhile for that money, coupled with the fact that they already received qualifying offers from their team? That means we have to give up a first-round draft pick in next year's draft. So not only do they have to sign up for more money than the team has offered them already, their current team has offered them, I should say, but they also have to give up a first-round pick. I don't think that's collusion. I think that's common sense. Congratulations, Major League Baseball owners, general managers, for finally waking up and smelling the coffee. And I do not include you, Los Angeles Dodgers, and you, the New York Yankees, because you never smell the coffee. You don't know what coffee smells like. In hockey news, there's a little bit of uncertainty in terms of the New York Rangers going forward. Uncertainty over the Rangers captain, Ryan Callahan, going forward. Because he turns 20, he's 28, he's going to become a UFA, an unrestricted free agent after the season, but he has not been giving the Rangers the it factor this year. He has not shown that he is worth the money that he's claiming to be worth right now. He's in the headlines for all the wrong reasons. He's been mediocrely playing on the ice during a contract year. He wants to stay in New York. If he really does, and that's what he's been saying all along, his agent has to lower the amount of money he's asking and the contract length demands. Right now he's asking for 7 years, $42 million, and Glenn Sather only wants to give him 5 years and $30 million. And the NHLPA is not helping at all here because it often forces its players to seek the most that they can get without regard for staying put in one place for an entire career. Let's say somebody like Martin Brodeur. Unfortunately, I see Ryan Callahan being traded before the trading deadline if the Rangers GM, Glenn Sather, cannot work out a deal with Callahan's representatives. I give kudos to Gary Bettman for the Stadium Series and for not pushing to have it a lot earlier before the time was ripe. See how many fans showed up, see what the atmosphere was like both in Los Angeles and in New York. I expect Denver, I expect the Colorado Avalanche in Denver, the whole Coors connection over there, to be in the running for a game next season, especially with the way the Avalanche are playing this year. It would only be really, really awesome to see them playing outdoors up in cold Denver, Colorado next year against, who knows? Maybe against, somebody, a team like perhaps Columbus or a team like Detroit. It would be really, really neat to see. Don't expect the NHL to partake in Olympics after this year. According to reports, no matter the outcome in Sochi, the Olympics are not going to matter anymore in the NHL because a 2-week break in the middle of the home stretch of the season essentially kills the flow the season has generated up to this point. I think that's also pretty much common sense. And when you look at what the NHL players bring to the ice and what type of love and affection the sport has brought right now to the fans in the States and in North America, I don't think that the NHL will participate in the Olympics going forward because of that specific thing where it's a 2-week break, it's a freeze, it's the Olympic break in the middle of a really good season. Shootouts probably won't be going anywhere either as long as the NBC, or rather as long as NBC is partnering with the NHL. Because NBC has championed, they love this skills competition to end the games. It's exciting, brings fans in, and there's rumor about possibly extending the overtime frame and then going to a shootout to end it if it's still tied. That's more likely to happen than a shootout going bye-bye for forever. And lastly, I think the Islanders have lost the Thomas Vanek trade. He's not been producing, or he's been producing, but he decided he's not going to re-up with the Islanders, and essentially he is a really expensive rental for a guy like Matt Molson who they gave up. The Islanders and their GM Garth Snow really came behind the 8 ball on this one. That's all for this show. Sports Talk, Sports Rabbi, have been brought to you by Chabad Packer, where all your travel needs are answered. ChabadPacker.com. Check them out. Don't forget, next week we're going to be having this awesome show. I'm putting together a couple really cool guests, so don't forget to tune in. Same time, same place, Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
All Noise Radio. Powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. All Noise Radio is an internet radio station that's fully produced by graduates of the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. From modern rock to old school hip hop, country to classical, news, talk, sports, and more. It's the noise you can't ignore. Log on to allnoiseradio.com. Fire up the station. Find out more about your favorite jocks. Get the latest CSB news and more. Plus, you can take All Noise Radio with you on the go for free. Just download the Live 365 app to your iPhone, iPod Touch, or BlackBerry and search All Noise Radio. Check out tomorrow's broadcasters today at allnoiseradio.com. Powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. All Noise Radio. The noise you can't ignore.